Lord Byron rebelled against the previous generation of romantics and wrote Darkness in 1816 between June and August when he was in Switzerland in a place called Villa Diodati. This was known as the year without a summer. There was a volcano eruption in Indonesia in 1815, which made the summer of 1816 to be completely dark and inspired Lord Byron to write Darkness. The reason to write this poem was that he thought that it was the beginning of the apocalypse, that nature was striking back, retaliating for not respecting it. As a matter of fact, a famous Italian astronomer said that the sun would burn and that life would come to an end. In this place, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein in a ghost story challenge that Lord Byron had created after she had a nightmare and felt abandoned by Percy. They all got inspired by this atmosphere, even John William Polidori, who wrote The Vampire for this same ghost story challenge. The vampire is an analogy of Lord Byron and how he sucked people's energy. Apart from this, at this time, religion was the most powerful institution and they were the most selfish people. As a matter of fact, they had all the power and let people die starving. They sort of behaved like humans in the apocalypse described by Byron. They praised moral values, but then they didn't behave this way. The Salem trials are just an example of this. This is why he makes constant references to the Bible, to show that the ones who know best God's word are the most selfish people, sort of the way that Nathaniel Hawthorne did in Young Goodman Brown in 1835. Darkness describes the end of the world the way how he imagined it would be, basically the hell created by humans on Earth. To begin with, he starts by saying that he had a dream, which was not all a dream, implying that it was a vision that he believes could happen in reality due to human behavior. After that, he starts explaining the apocalypse from his own imagination. The stars would extinguish and therefore, also the moon, so everything would become dark. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space, rayless and pathless. Without light, the earth would get completely cold. The icy earth swung blind and blackening in the moonless air, forever. Morn came and brought no day. After that he then turns to coldness and darkness, not in the weather but in human hearts, and men forgot their passions in the dread of this their desolation, and all hearts were chilled into a selfish prayer for light. With this, the author implies that people would lose their human feelings and would become cold and dark. After that, we can see a macro topic which is inequality and materialism. In the following lines, the author implies the idea that the apocalypse is ironically the only way how humans are equals because, as Byron mentions, every human creation would be burnt, the palaces of crowned kings, the huts, the habitations of all things which dwell, were burnt for beacons, cities were consumed, and they did live by watchfires, and the thrones. These lines are also related to materialism, as in the apocalypse every human looks for themselves, they are selfish. Moreover, we can see that the only light that remained was the light of the fire. We must difference between natural light and fire. Fire represents passion, but also devastation. This is linked to the myth of Prometheus, which deals with the emancipation of humans to divinity. Prometheus gave humanity fire by stealing it from Zeus. Fire is also related to technology, as fire is needed to make tools from metals. Fire represents technology and science in Frankenstein as well. Light is related to enlightenment. Light was seen as science and it was supposed to make people free. However, a lot of people suffered due to the Napoleonic Wars, which brought death. What seemed a good cause ended in destruction. So fire is a negative symbol while natural light is regarded as good. Furthermore, there is no natural light left. This is why he feels that people who lived near volcanoes were lucky because they could see each other's faces. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes and their mountain torch. After that, people, who had no human feelings left but fearful hope, started to burn nature to have light. Forests were set on fire, but hour by hour they fell and faded, and the crackling trunks extinguished with a crash, and all was black. After that, he starts explaining that humans looked like ghosts, wore an unearthly aspect, as by fits the flashes fell upon them, and also the reactions of humans to the apocalypse. Some lay down and cried, some lay down and hid their eyes and wept, knowing they were going to die, while others started smiling, underlining that people had lost their mind and that there was a strong sense of dementia. Then they started to burn each other's corpses and lost their human facial features. The animals would lose their animal nature and would be frightened. The wildest brutes came tame and tremulous, and vipers crawled and twined themselves among the multitude, hissing, but stingless. Birds could not fly, the wild birds shrieked, and, terrified, did flutter on the ground, and flap their useless wings. People then started killing each other, and there was no more love. Instead, people wanted to die as quickly and best as possible, and war, which for a moment was no more, did glut himself again. A meal was bought with blood, and each sate sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. No love was left, all earth was but one thought, and that was death, immediate and inglorious. Then the sense of madness aggravates during the whole poem, and people started resorting to cannibalism, and the pang of famine fed upon all entrails. Men died, and their bones were tombless as their flesh. The meager by the meager were devoured. We can see extreme individualism and collective hysteria expressed at an individual level. We can see then that dogs as well as humans started killing their masters, all except one that stayed loyal to his master and died protecting his corpse. Even dogs assailed their masters, all save one, and he was faithful to a course, and kept the birds and beasts and famished men at bay, till hunger clung them, or the dropping dead led their lank jaws. Himself sought out no food, but with a piteous and perpetual moan, and a quick desolate cry, licking the hand which answered not with a caress, he died. Byron underlines that this dog was the only creature who still had feelings, not a human. Furthermore, there are only two people left, which is a reference to Cain and Abel. They go to a temple and burn sacred objects. This setting underlines the perversion that humanity had reached. They met beside the dying embers of an altar place where had been heaped a mass of holy things for an unholy usage. When they see each other's faces after making a mocking fire, they look like demons, not humans anymore, and they died from shock. Saw, and shrieked, and died, even of their mutual hideousness they died, unknowing who he was upon whose brow famine had written fiend. Apart from this, we have more biblical references to famine as well as war and disease, which are the riders of the apocalypse. To conclude, Byron expresses how the earth would end. According to Byron, earth would end as a static mass of dirt with no seasons or life. The world was void, the populous and the powerful, was a lump, seasonless, herbless, treeless, manless, lifeless, a lump of death, a chaos of hard clay. Apart from this, mutability is another main topic also because nature is always in constant change. However, Byron imagines that the world would remain static without nature. The rivers, lakes and ocean all stood still, and nothing stirred within their silent depths. The waves were also dead because the moon, their mistress, had expired before, and even the winds were stagnant air, so the clouds perished. He concludes the poem by presenting an image of whole darkness. Darkness had no need of aid from them, she was the universe. We can see that the darkness presented in the poem is literal but also moral, and it is presented as a critic of human society.